thank you for joining me for this Cultivating Peace and finding Direction visualization. We all know that at the present time, we are bombarded with that which makes us feel unpeaceful, and we try not to take too much notice. We try to maintain our equilibrium, and yet sometimes, though that which we are being bombarded with, that which we see on the news, that which is happening around us, the pace of change, the kinds of changes that are taking place, make us feel unpeaceful. And this visualization is to help you to find your point of peace, and also to navigate your way a little bit more in changing times. Not that we can change too much of what happens around us, but it is more how we relate to that, how we respond to that, how we maintain self-belief and belief in our own positive possibilities when life does seem to be more chaotic than it has been. And we are dealing with things in the previous couple of years that, when we looked forwards from a point, say 3, 4, 5 years ago, we would never ever have thought that is what we are going to be dealing with. So in a way, we are a little bit like ships without rudders, or hikers without compasses and maps. And in a way, that's great, because we have to remake the map. It is in our time that the map will be remade, but at the same time, maintaining our own sense of inner peace and bringing ourselves back to that point as often as we can in the midst of our sometimes turbulent lives, and certainly lives in which we cannot escape the fact that a certain amount of turbulence is taking place. But that turbulence does give also tremendous possibilities for remaking the pattern, for making those changes that perhaps wouldn't be made any other way. And that would apply to individuals, but also to what we collectively make. So without any further introduction, I will ask you to rest comfortably, to make sure that it is okay for you to not give your conscious attention to something during the next sort of 20 minutes or so, just to make sure that you haven't left anything on the cooker. And certainly if you want to do this in a car when somebody else is driving, you can, but only if you listen through headphones or the driver is wearing headphones, because conscious attention is required for driving, and that would apply to someone who was consciously listening, and also to someone who it is just there in the background of their world. So we want to make sure that it is okay for everyone who is listening to this, and safe for everyone who is listening to this, to be able to avoid giving their conscious attention to anything. In other words, that is not required in this special time for you. And it is lovely to have a time when our conscious attention is not required. So I would ask you to make yourself comfortable, to lay back or to sit slightly reclining. Although I know some people, particularly those into Buddhism or yoga, like to sit with their spines very straight. And if you're comfortable like that, it is perfect. So I would ask you now to just be aware of your breath flowing in and out, in and out, in and out. And to be aware of your hands and your fingers, wherever they are resting. Perhaps your hands are clasped across your abdomen, and you can feel your breath going in and out as your abdomen rises and falls, if your breath is sufficiently deep for that. But don't try to make your hands, when you focus on them, be any particular way. You might find that your fingers are fairly straight. You might find that they are bent. You might find you want to move your fingers slightly. You might find, as you become aware of your fingers, that your eyelids have become so heavy that without you realizing it, your eyes have closed. But if your eyes haven't closed, just become aware now. Just remember a time when you were watching television and you wanted to keep your eyes open, but you just couldn't, because those eyelids became heavier and heavier, heavier and heavier, until you couldn't keep those eyelids open. And the sounds and the words that were associated with whatever you had hoped to watch were just washing over you, until they kind of faded like echoes that then disappeared out of sight, out of hearing, becoming like whispers that were almost heard. And then you found that your consciousness had taken you to a different place, maybe into a dream, maybe just into a different place where all was peaceful, all was silent, but in reality where life tingled. For when we are asleep, when we are relaxing totally, our minds, the background of the mind, is very, very active. And the background of your mind is always working, regulating your breathing, ensuring your heartbeat is as it should be, and regulating so many processes within the body, ensuring that your immune system is working, and so on. So as you're resting there now, with your eyes closed, aware of your breath, just becoming very, very peaceful, I want you to visualize a beautiful white rose, and if another flower that is important to you, because you associate it with beauty, purity, and peacefulness, comes to mind. That is perfectly okay. I recall a lady during this exercise who said that instead of a white rose, she saw a beautiful orchid. And that reminded her of the flowers that she carried on her wedding day, more than 50 years previously. And she felt that her marriage had been a blessed one. And so that was the appropriate flower for her. But whatever white flower that you associate with peace and purity, I want you to bring it to mind now. I want you to visualize that flower in the center of your chest, at the heart of your being, at your heart chakra. Just to visualize that flower and to feel the feelings of perfect peace as you see the light radiating from that flower and radiating throughout your being. Radiating throughout your being to return you to a state of inner peace. A state of inner peace when you are nevertheless alert to all possibilities, all potential, and maybe memories of special peaceful moments will come to mind. Memories that are the product of the past, but are gifts that are present today to enrich your existence. Gifts delivering inner peace, the inner peace that leads to outer peace, the inner peace that leads to calmness, the calmness that helps us to navigate whatever life brings, in the certain knowledge that whilst we cannot control the outer world, we can control through processes of inner peace how we respond to situations. And those responses can make a real difference to how we react, how we think, and how we feel. And that can make a tremendous difference in everyday life, bringing many blessings and even changing sometimes how others will respond to us. When we come from that peaceful place, we react differently. When we come from that peaceful place, we unite with the wisest part of us. And that wise part of us has something different to give, something of a higher quality. And whilst you're resting there, holding the flower of peace at your heart, I'd like to talk about finding our way and to create an image in the mirror of your mind to help you to recall your own direction finding skill and to know that that skill is there regardless of the storms that life sometimes brings. In many countries, but especially in Northern Europe, there were times in the past when the people would watch out for the moment when the geese went on their journeys of migration, journeys that would last over many days and nights. And isn't it interesting that the time of sleep never interrupted the bird's sense of direction? They always knew exactly where to fly and how to do it as they flew in perfect V-shaped formation, guided by an invisible inner radar, never doubting that they would get where they needed to go, flying through storms, flying through beautiful, peaceful sunlight, on their journeys of migration that they undertook each year. But the people of the north, they knew there was a special reason for watching these birds take flight, because it reminded them that they too had inner compasses, inner wisdom, inner knowing that would help them to navigate their own journeys. And whether those journeys took place at certain times of the year, as was the case, as is still the case with some reindeer herding peoples, we know that journeys take place in everyday modern life, metaphorical journeys, when we go where we need to go in life, in conversation, in response to things, sometimes taking physical journeys. We know that there is an inner wisdom that will guide us, that we can most easily find when we go into that peacefulness, but also when we remember that we have that wisdom. We trust that we have that wisdom, and changing times simply offer new vistas, new ways, new possibilities for operating that skill. And that skill in itself possesses an inner knowing that tells it how to evolve. But we just need to know that we can go with the flow, that we can direct our own minds to respond in the best possible way, that we can become our own guides, our own compasses, and that yes, sometimes we encounter real or metaphorical storms, but there is a part of us that knows just what to do and just how to do it. And when we remember this helps to promote our own sense of inner peace, aware of the beauty of peace that we all carry within us, that is indeed like a precious white flower, a precious white rose, or something else that is surrounded by the light of life, the light of spirit, the wonder of life. And we must never forget that each one of us is a tiny part of the whole, of the light, of the beauty. And in a moment, after I've given you a moment to process a little more, I will invite you back to everyday waking consciousness. But first I will count up to 10. And when I get to 10, you will open your eyes, feel awake and alert. Take a few deep breaths and have a stretch or a wriggle before you get on with your day. And if you are doing this meditation at the end of your day, and it is time for you to sleep, you will just drift into a beautiful sleep and awaken at the time that you have decided. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Thank you for joining me.